Welcome back to Community-Based Adaptation Conference in Dhaka, Bangladesh. We have Dr. Nambi with us from the Swaminathan Research Foundation in India. We're squeezing in between sessions, so I've got to get you to talk quickly and get to the point. So one of the key elements at this conference is about scaling up. Can you give us some feedback on your experiences and in so doing? Perhaps just tell us a little about what those experiences are in India.
No, scaling up is the thing, because a lot of work has been done in community-based adaptation at a micro level, but unless it reaches the top, it's not going to be of much use. So it's important to recognize that. And what we have done is, what are some of the important points is, while talking about scaling up, one has to identify the right entry points for the climate-based, community-based adaptations, because it's context specific. One has to have that in mind. And secondly, this process is very important. It is not the product or outcome. It's very much process-oriented approach one should have. If you ask me, the skill development, social mobilization, and awareness are the key things. And the process have to be tuned to those three elements. And secondly, we have an approach of incentivizing the CBA, and that's very, very important. Unless the local communities see the incentives. For example, in India, you have a three-tier system, and we have the panchayats, what's called the local governments. They have been allotted some funds, but it's important for them to demonstrate, whoever has demonstrated the CBA should be given additional funds to further work on that. That's a very critical element. And secondly, the extension services are far more. They are the bridge between the bureaucrats, the state functionaries, and the community. So they have to have the knowledge of what community-based adaptation means, and they kind of they have to do their own need assessments, and they have to be more made accountable to run the community-based adaptation processes.
Sorry, can I just interrupt? When you say incentivizing, does it have to be money?
It is not money, even kind, bringing in small infrastructures like check dams, it could be, small agrometeorological stations, or funding those resources. That's very critical. And also capacity building is an important component as part of that. That's a huge gap there. So that's important. And also it's kind of integrating the civic science and the modern science together, bringing those two elements together. That is how you see community-based adaptation function.
And one of the problems seems to be that at the community level, people do things, they act, they're after all, it's their lives. But often officials or next level up they're not really aware of what's going on, or they don't have time, perhaps, put it kindly, to get out down to the ground to see what's happening.
That's a very good question. That's an important element. As I mentioned, extension officers have to be really made accountable, and they have to be capacitated on these aspects. Unless they know what they're doing. For example, we did a kind of a module we developed for the extension training work. That's far more critical in terms of having that knowledge, because also this is a very complex subject as well. There are certain sectoral approaches now, water, forestry, so this has to be integrated. So they have to have this kind of a synergetic approach. So in that sense, the capacities are very, very critical, and we have to impart those knowledge to those people who are the main players.
Well, you're in a very interesting position because you've worked at many levels in this area, including as on a government delegation at the climate talks. Do you find, when talking at the sort of top level, that are people concerned only with sort of mega international policy, or are they aware of the issues down the line and what the issues really are just for ordinary people, for farmers and so on?
Yeah, certainly it's important. That's why the role of people like me comes in, who've been working as practitioners at one level and take this knowledge and transport that to that level. That's very critical. There's some kind of gap which exists as well, but it is important to, but not that, not everybody is sensitive to this thing, but still there are people who've been involved in this process who have considerable knowledge in this area. So it's important to kind of bring this perspective always to that level, so that gets reflected in the negotiation process. That's the kind of a job what I try to do.
India often seems to be ahead in many of this, research and experimenting in these areas with agriculture and small. Do you think that's the outside view that I have myself, and I know talking to other people? Do you think that's fair, that there is a lot of really original work going on in India?
Yeah, certainly there's no doubt, it's such a diverse country, and it is a kind of a test lab, having the different agroclimatic zones. That in itself shows, there's kind of a diversity, what kind of diversity which exists. So it's important to take this knowledge and work on. That's a kind of a perfect test bench in many sense. That is why, we see some results, but at the same time, integration is going to be such a huge country. Integration is going to be a problem because we have diverse ecosystems. And, one of the binding forces, what I say, is the kind of a the government's plan on NREGA. I don't know if you heard of that, National Resources, sorry, I'm so sorry. It is called as a National Employment Guarantee Scheme, which is arguably the most, the biggest social security program in the world, covering 600 districts and about 40 million people. They've been working on, 50% of the time is devoted to doing some natural resources management work, like water conservation or forestry related work, minor irrigation work. So if this is going to be tapped, that will be a big boon for CBA, and the dialogue is taking place on that direction, and a lot of NGOs are working with the government to see how this could be leveraged in a bigger way. So there is a huge opportunity there. And so these kind of schemes come into very handy to kind of scaling up.
And the hubbub is growing behind us now because there's another session about to start, but we can just squeeze in one more question about the awareness of climate change in India. I don't mean at government negotiating level or at the sort of technical expertise level that you're in, but do you think on the ground are people aware of this as an issue?
This is certainly growing. The awareness is growing. There's no doubt about it. In the past 10 years, because of the consistent effort and sustainable effort made by different NGOs and the government on its own. But also the problems are also speaks for it, and that's another reason. The problems the farmers face at the community level are far more complex today, and they also realize there's something happening, but the science is they're not getting the right information at the right time. That's the huge thing. They know that something is happening, but they don't know how to handle it, and in that sense, it's very important to bring the right information at the right time and make them prepare to face the adversities arising out of climate change.
But one of the participants today said we always used to talk about trickle down. We need to talk about flood up. That there is a sort of there is expertise on the ground. People have been fighting these problems for centuries. Now it's going to get worse, presumably. But is information going up? People's actual experience, lived experience of dealing with floods and droughts in, say, India, is that captured in India at a policy making level?
There are attempts have been made. I won't say everything has been captured, but certainly there are certain attempts. Now the consciousness is growing among the bureaucrats, among the administrative level. So it is kind of catching up. It is a long way to go. It's not that easy. India, particularly India being such a diverse country, it's very difficult to cater to everybody's needs, and so there should be some kind of a unified approach. And for example, the research also has to be brought in one platform in some sense. That's very important.
Okay, we're going to be drowned out by the noise of the panel, so we'll have to stop. But thanks very much, Dr. Nambi. And you can always go to the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation website if you want to find out more specifics. Thanks very much.